I would start with this. You know, we obviously see on the cable shows very different viewpoints that are presented, that from Republicans, Democrats, the talking heads, but they're actually in Washington, having been there a year and a half, there is an undercurrent of examples where members of both sides of the aisle do see each other. Maybe it's not on a TV show, but for example, dinners that I've participated in of smaller groups of senators after hours, bipartisan groups, where we're trying to find common ground and figure out how we can make sure that the Senate functions in the way it was intended, so we're getting things done for the country. And then also Senator Shaheen and I finding common ground on issues for New Hampshire, whether it's with our military or our small businesses. And this isn't that, for she and I, we did a joint hearing last summer. We both served on the Small Business Committee together, and we actually did a joint hearing in New Hampshire and had federal officials testify and New Hampshire businesses. So that was another example where we were able to do things together. There's no question that it's a very, very challenging time, and Washington is a very divisive place. But I would say not only hold us accountable, but we are a reflection of you, so let us know how important it is, and I mean us collectively, the Congress, not just Senator Shaheen and I, who very much want to find ways that we can help New Hampshire together, but how can we make sure that that is an important component of how we view our elected officials, their ability to solve problems, and not just work with people that agree with them all the time.
Senator Ayotte talked about the smaller dinners that happen in Washington. One of the things that the women of the Senate do about 4 times a year on a bipartisan basis is we have dinner together. Of course, we operate under Mikulski's rules. Barbara Mikulski, who is the longest serving woman in Congress, and that is what happens at the dinner stays at the dinner. So we can't talk about that. But I actually think that the women of the Senate have done a very good job of working together. And I think there are a lot of examples that we can point to where people work together really well. The transportation bill that I referred to earlier, which passed out of the Senate with a strong bipartisan vote, came out of the committee that was chaired by Barbara Boxer, who is about as far on the left as you can get, and Jim Inhofe, who is the ranking member, who's about as far on the right as you can get from Oklahoma. And the two of them were able to agree on this legislation and move it forward. So there's no doubt that there are areas where we can come to an agreement. I'm working with Rob Portman, who is the Republican senator from Ohio, on an energy efficiency bill, which we're very excited about. We've been working on this for over a year now. It came out of committee 18-3, but we can't get it to the floor. And one of the real challenges with the Senate is the rules. The fact is the Senate operates by something called unanimous consent, and that means that one person can object to whatever the issue is, whatever the legislation is, from going to the floor, and nothing happens. Now, you know, I think there are maybe a few more people in this room than there are in the Senate, but imagine everybody in this room having to come to total agreement on everything that comes before the chamber. And then you see how that can be a prescription for obstructionism. I think we've got to take a hard look at the rules of the Senate. I don't think we should have a motion to proceed to the motion to end debate before we can ever get to the bill. I think that, again, is not, we have a lot of these long-time rules that have been in place to protect the minority, and what they've ultimately done is to keep things from moving forward. And this is not I say that, this is not a partisan difference. I think when we tried to change the rules at the beginning of this session, it was mostly the classes from 2006 and 2008, there were objections on both sides of the aisle from those people who had been in the Senate for years and years and years. But I think it's time now to look at the way the Senate operates and to make some changes so that we can address the big issues facing this country and not have them held up by some of those, by one or two people who don't want to see something happen in a particular area.
Very good, Senator Shaheen. I'll start with